happen. They are about to start spreading their influence throughout that territory under Tiglath-Pileser. And the king of Syria, Rezin, and the king of Israel, Pekah, realize the imminent threat that is there, and they band together with the idea of they are going to resist Assyria's influence. And they invite King Ahaz of the southern kingdom of Judah to join them in this agreement, in this contract of kings, so that they can resist, thinking if they can get enough countries in that area together, then maybe they can resist the Assyrian influence. Ahaz evidently refuses to do that, and so Syria and the northern kingdom of Israel decide that what they're going to do is attack Judah and put in another king. In Isaiah 7 and verse 6, their intention is to set a king over them, the son of Tabal. We don't know who Tabal is. We do know, though, that he is not in the lineage of David, and that will prove to be significant in this. Isaiah is sent to Ahaz in order to calm his heart. God knows what's in Ahaz's heart. He knows that Ahaz is afraid because these men are coming against him with their armies. And so in verse 3 of Isaiah chapter 7, the Lord sends Isaiah to Ahaz with the intention of calming his heart and assuring him that there is no evil that is going to come to him as a result of this, that God will be his protection, or at least he will not be deposed from his kingship, as is the intention of the two kings from the north. There is a significant defeat for Judah a little later on by the Assyrians, but for now, Ahaz sees Assyria as a friend and possible ally. Perez and Rezin, their armies, do significant damage to the southern kingdom. I think it's 2 Chronicles 28 says that they killed 120,000 of Israel or of Judah's soldiers and took captive 200,000 of the women and children to be slaves. And 2 Chronicles 28 tells us that God allowed that to happen because of Ahaz's wickedness. We've talked about Ahaz in past lessons, that Ahaz, one of the most wicked of the kings of the southern kingdom. And 2 Chronicles chapter 28 talks about a prophet being sent to the northern kingdom to condemn what they have done in taking their brethren as slaves. And so they allow those to come back. But there is still significant danger for Ahaz. It looks like just about everything but Jerusalem fell during that Syrian and northern kingdom battle against them, or invasion of them. The message that God has for Isaiah in verse 3, "Go out now to meet Ahaz, you and Jashub, your son, at the end of the aqueduct from the upper pool on the highway to the fuller's field, and say to him, take heed and be quiet. Do not fear nor be faint-hearted for these two stubs of smoking firebrands. For their for the fierce anger of Rezin of Syria and the son of Remaliah, because Syria and Ephraim and the son of Remaliah have plotted evil against you, saying, let us go up against Judah and trouble it, and let us make a gap in its wall for ourselves, and set a king over them, the son of Tabel. Okay, so their plan is to come in to take Ahaz out of the kingship and install this man. I think that's significant, what their intention is. Why is it significant that they would want to put this man Tabel into rule there? Okay, probably would be an ally to, well, yeah, most likely, because, I mean, that's why they're wanting to set him up. There's a deeper reason, though, than just the fact that he would be an ally to Syria and the northern kingdom. What promise was made to David? His descendants would not cease to be on the throne. If they put Tabel in, that is against the will of God for who's supposed to be sitting on that throne. And so this goes deeper than just a couple of countries wanting to fight another country. It goes to the very heart of what God's intention for these people is. And so Isaiah calls them two stubs of smoking firebrands. That's the fancy way in that day and time of saying these two basically powerless, worthless in the sight of God kings are going to come against you. But don't be concerned about that. Verse 7, thus says the Lord God, it shall not stand, nor shall it come to pass. For the head of Syria is Damascus, the head of Damascus is Rezin. Within 65 years Ephraim will be broken, so that it will not be a people. The head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If you will not believe, surely you shall not be established. The head of Syria is Damascus, the head of Damascus is Rezin. Is there some significance to that, to God telling Ahaz that? Who's the head of Judah? God is the head of Judah. And I think what Isaiah is telling him is God is not with, God is not leading, God is not the head of either Syria or the northern kingdom. Although Ahaz does not recognize it and will not admit it, God is the head of his kingdom. And so the fact that God will be with him and not with Syria or the northern kingdom means that whatever God determines, that is what is going to happen. And God's determination, despite the fact that Ahaz is such a wicked man, is that for now his rule is established. In verse 10, moreover, the Lord spoke again to Ahaz, saying, ask a sign for yourself from the Lord your God. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. I think that's the Old Testament way of saying, you ask whatever it is that you want, no matter how high it is or how low it is. You know, it is your oyster. Whatever you want, God will give to you. A sign that God is going to be with you, and Syria and Israel, although they'll do some great damage, they will not be able to conquer you. So ask for that sign. Verse 12, but Ahaz said, I will not ask, nor will I test the Lord. That's an interesting response from Ahaz. We might have known some kings who were really, really righteous kings who would have said, you know what, if the Lord said it, that's good enough for me. I don't need the sign. Problem is, Ahaz is not that kind of a guy. Ahaz is as wicked as they come. And from the day he took office in the southern kingdom, he was testing God. And now he decides that he will not test God. When God gives you an opportunity and God permits something, it is not to test God to do what he said that he wants to do for you. I do not believe that Ahaz had a problem here with thinking that he might overstep his boundaries and test God. Why do you think Ahaz may have said this?
He was a good politician. He was just playing whatever side was there at the time.
Okay, I think that's significant. This is a politically minded man. What'd you say?
He thinks he can handle it himself.
Okay, and I think that kind of gets to the heart of it. What Isaiah has told him is, you need to believe and trust in the Lord. That's not in Ahaz's wheelhouse. And he's already got his plan made. What's his plan? I'm going to get the Assyrians on my side. So Isaiah says you need to trust in God. Ahaz hasn't trusted in God a day in his life. And to him that is a bad plan. So what good is it to ask God for a sign if you don't intend on doing what God said to do anyway? If you don't intend to believe in God and trust God, that God is going to save you. So Ahaz says, I'm not going to ask God. And so God says, okay, I'll choose the sign. In verse 13, then he said, Hear now, O house of David, is it a small thing for you to weary men? But will you weary my God also? Again, it's not wearisome to do what God has requested for us to do. Here's the sign, verse 14. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Immanuel. Curds and honey he shall eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that you dread will be forsaken by both her kings. The Lord will bring the king of Assyria upon you and your people and your father's house, days that have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah. Okay, so God says, I'll give you a sign. And the sign is that a virgin is going to conceive and bear a son. And his name is Immanuel, which means God with us. God is going to come. And he is going to come in the form of humanity. And he will be born into this world. And before he reaches the age of knowing how to refuse the evil from the good, which, we're talking infancy. Before he gets out of infancy, Assyria and the northern kingdom will no longer exist. They will not be a threat to you anymore. Who's he talking about here?
Jesus.
Okay, obviously he's talking about Jesus. There are some who say that this has a dual fulfillment. I don't know that it does, and I don't think it's necessary to see a dual fulfillment in here. It has been proposed that perhaps the immediate fulfillment here would be Isaiah's second son that would be born very soon. And his very name, Speed the Spoil, Hasten the Booty, would be one of those signs. And that before that child grows up, could be an immediate thing, although he does use the term virgin, which I understand that it can signify a young woman, but typically it is a young woman who has not known man, who is pure. I think the difficulty that some have with it is, how in the world is this supposed to be a an encouragement to Ahaz, something that's going to happen centuries from now. How is Ahaz supposed to get some kind of a benefit? How's that assigned to Ahaz? And I think there are two important things here. First of all is the time element here. Within just a couple of years, it may look like Syria and Israel are strong and that they're going to be successful, but understand, it's kind of the revelation message about the church and Rome. It looks like Rome is the power and they're about to destroy the church. And John's message is, when Rome is in the dust, you'll still be standing. The church of our Lord will still be standing. I think the same kind of message is here. You need to understand that when Syria is gone, when the northern kingdom of Israel is gone, your kingdom will still be here. And you will still be here. That's the first thing. The second thing that I take from this is it is a message to Ahaz that his kingly line will not be destroyed. That whatever happens, either he or one of his children is going to be on that throne because he is part of a greater plan. And that greater plan is that he is going to, through David's seed, which means through Ahaz's seed, through Hezekiah's seed, and on, through their seed, the Messiah is coming into this world. And it does not fit God's plan for Ahaz to be taken out and someone else to be brought in. Mark.
Some of the leaders of God in times past, going back to Gideon, have been given signs that were pretty small. A fleece that was wet and surrounding the ground dry and vice versa. That's not a big deal. It is. It's a miracle. But that's on a small scale. This one is offered anything he wants, and he turns it down. And so God says, all right, I'll give you the sign of the ages. Yeah. You're not going to live to see it.
Yeah. That's a good point. What more tremendous sign it could be given to a guy? But you're right. It's not going to be in your time. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so God knows what Ahaz is going to do. He knows that Ahaz is going to appeal to the Syrians. In verse 17 is that, they may come save you for now, and they do. They come and they wreak havoc among the Syrians in the northern kingdom. You may get some help from them for now, but don't think that they are your friend. Later on, when the Philistines and who else is it that comes against the Edomites, I think, kind of join forces and come against them. He calls on the Assyrians again. This time the Assyrians come, but they don't come as helpers. They come as those who will share in the spoil, basically. And later on, of course, the Assyrians, when they come and totally wipe out Syria and the northern kingdom, they will make tremendous inroads into the southern kingdom. And the only thing that winds up saving them, and this is in the days of Hezekiah, the only thing that winds up saving them is Hezekiah's trust in the Lord, his prayer to the Lord, and God wiping out 185,000, I believe, of the army of Assyria in one night. And so the point in verse 17 is that you may think that Assyria is your friend, but understand that Assyria is not your friend. And they may save you right now, but there is a time coming when you will pay a heavy toll for that. And so he talks about the things that are going to happen, verses 18 through 20. The Lord, verse 20, with a hired razor. That's what they did to slaves. They would shave them. It's degrading to them, to the person whose head and hair and beard is removed. Verse 21, it shall be in that day that a man will keep alive a young cow and 2 sheep. It shall be from the abundance of milk they give that he will eat curds, for curds and honey everyone will eat who is left in the land. Curds and honey, that's what he says in verse 15, that Immanuel will eat. I saw some awfully fanciful ideas about what this means. Curds and honey they were the food of the poor. And I think what Isaiah is saying to Ahaz in verse 15 is that Immanuel will be he's not coming in with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's not coming in to live in a castle somewhere and eat the finest of delicacies. He's going to eat the food of basically the poor is going to be his food. And that's the same idea in verse 22. These people who have lived in such abundance, when the Assyrians come, the abundance will come to an end. They will be eating the food of the poor. It will be barrenness in the land, verse 23, where used to be there were thousands of vines worth 1,000 shekels of silver. That land will now be filled with briars and thorns. With arrows and bows, men will come there, because all the land shall become briars and thorns. And to any hill which could be dug with a hoe, you will not go there for fear of briars and thorns, but it will become a range for oxen, a place for sheep to roam. So even though the Assyrians will do great damage and bring poverty to the land, they will not destroy the southern kingdom as they will destroy the Syrians and the northern kingdom. Any comments through chapter 7? Okay. We begin then chapter 8. Moreover, the Lord said to me, take a large scroll and write on it with a man's pen concerning Maher Shalal Hash Baz. A man who would name his son that does not intend for them to have an easy time in school. When the teacher tries to pronounce his name. But there's a reason why he is named that awfully weird name. Because there is a message in the name that God tells Isaiah to name his son. We see the same kind of thing in Hosea and perhaps other prophets. Not at all unusual for there to be a message to the people in the naming of the prophet's son. And here, this young man's name means speed the spoil, hasten the booty. And what we see in verses 1 through 4 is that Isaiah's attention, which has for the vast majority of the first 7 chapters has been turned to the southern kingdom of Judah, both in the punishment that is coming to them and the promise of the Messiah that is coming to him. Now attention is turned to Syria and Damascus and Israel and Samaria. The destruction that is coming at the hands of the Assyrians. And so Isaiah is instructed to write on a scroll, to speed the spoil and hasten the booty. Calls on 2 witnesses to testify to the veracity of what has been written. One is the high priest at that time. Isaiah's newborn son is given the same name. All of that is testimony to the fact that Syria and Israel are going to fall. And then in verses 5 through 10, attention is once again turned to Judah and what will happen to them when Assyria Assyria invades. And I like the imagery here in verse 6. Insomuch as these people refuse the waters of Shiloah that flow softly and rejoice in Rezin and in Remaliah's son. Now therefore, behold, the Lord brings up over them the waters of the river strong and mighty, the king of Assyria and all his glory. He will go up over all his channels and go over all his banks. He will pass through Judah. He will overflow and pass over. He will reach up to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Immanuel. Be shattered, O you peoples, and be broken in pieces. Give ear, all you from far countries. Gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, but it will come to nothing. Speak the word, but it will not stand, for God is with us. The imagery here is of waters. Think of wells and rivers. The waters of Shiloah were from it was a well or stream that was near the city of Jerusalem that provided water to Jerusalem. And it stands for the help of God, God near to them. So God has promised to be near and to save them, and they have rejected him. Instead, they have rejoiced in the waters of Rezin and in Remaliah's son. And you see later on in I believe it's 1 Kings 16. It's his that part of this story where when Ahaz goes up to Damascus, he sees an altar there. And he is impressed by this altar, and he instructs the high priest to construct an altar that looks just like the altar in Damascus. And they put that where God's altar is at the temple, and they moved God's altar over to the side. And so there's kind of an admiration that Ahaz has for Syria and evidently for Rezin. And so he says, you rejoice in the waters of Rezin and in the waters of Remaliah's son would be Perez, the king of the northern kingdom. So you've resisted God's waters, you've turned your back on God's waters, and you've gone to these other nations for their waters. And so what's going to happen to them, verse 7, as a result of that? Whose water's coming? God's water's coming. The waters of the river. What is the river? It's Euphrates. It's that, and the Euphrates bordered Assyria, separated kind of Assyria from these other countries. And he says the waters of Assyria, the waters of the Euphrates are going to overflow. That's the armies coming in. And they are just going to flood everything, reaching all the way up to what on the southern kingdom? To the neck. You're going to be up to your neck in Assyrian destruction, is what he's saying here. You've resisted God's water. You've trusted in Syria's water. God's going to bring the Assyrian water against you. And you're going to be shattered. You're going to be broken as a result of this. Everything but destroyed. Now, Assyria and the northern kingdom, it's going to go above their heads. And they will be destroyed. Not so the kingdom of Judah. And so there's good news and bad news in this. The good news, the bad news is Assyria's coming. They're going to do great damage. The good news is you're not going to be destroyed like these other two nations. Well, in any crisis, what we need to do is trust God. And beginning at verse 11, God has a message for Isaiah specifically. For the Lord spoke thus to me with a strong hand, instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, do not say a conspiracy concerning all this people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. The Lord of hosts you shall hallow. Let him be your fear. Let him be your dread. He will be as a sanctuary, but a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, as a trap and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Many among them shall stumble, and they shall fall and be broken, be snared and taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait on the Lord, who hides his face from the house of Jacob, and I will hope in him. Here am I, the children whom the Lord has given me. We are for signs and wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts, who dwells in Mount Sion. Okay, so the message to Isaiah is don't get to thinking like these people are thinking. They're in their minds everything's a conspiracy, and Isaiah's message is don't think like that. Don't let them persuade you onto their side. And the other thing he says is, and don't be afraid of them. And it seems to me that those are two, I guess, extreme dangers. When you're out there and you're trying to live for the Lord and trying to be an influence for good as best that you can, there's always the danger that as you are talking to people about their souls and you're trying to get them to change, as Isaiah is doing with these people, there is that danger that eventually you get frustrated by it and you go to the other side, kind of. You begin to think like they think. And God says, don't you think like those people are thinking? Very similar to the message in Matthew chapter 6 of don't be concerned about the things that the Gentiles are concerned by. The what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, those kinds of things. All those things the Gentiles seek after. What are we seeking after, though, according to Jesus in Matthew 6? The kingdom of God and his righteousness. That's what needs to be our concern. But there is that danger. And don't we see it all the time? And don't we fall into it a lot? Especially in these kind of ridiculous political times that we live in, of getting all bent out of shape, like the world has been out of shape about all of these kinds of things, and all worried like the world is worried. We need to guard against that thinking like the world around us thinks. And so that's one of the things that Isaiah says that God says to Isaiah, don't get wrapped up in that. And then that fearing of the threats. A number of the prophets that got awfully weary of standing against the world and doing what is right. That's why Paul says, do not be weary of well-doing, because that is a danger for us. I love that in verse 14. God will be your sanctuary. You just keep trusting in God, and God is going to take care of you. He will be your hiding place. He will be your place of comfort. However, to the others, God becomes a stumbling stone and a rock of offense. Who uses that in the New Testament? Both Peter and Paul use that idea of Israel stumbling over Jesus Christ in him crucified. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 23. To us, the cross is the power of God. To the Jews, it became a stumbling stone and a rock of offense, taking that same language and applying it to Jesus Christ. Here it applies, though, to God and God's will for them. Don't let God become a stumbling stone for you, as he has been to these people, the message of God, to trust in him. Verse 16, binding the testimony and sealing the law. It's going to be a couple of years before this all begins to take shape, and Isaiah needs to keep this message safe and wait on the Lord and what the Lord is doing. Verse 19, when they say to you, seek those who are mediums or wizards, who whisper and mutter, should not a people seek their God? Should they seek the dead on behalf of the living? No, one religion is not as good as another. and that's what he's saying here. Don't get caught up in this idea that you can turn your back on God and his truth, and you can consult mediums and their truth. Because there is one truth that stands, and no medium can give it to you, no wizard can give it to you. Only God can give you that. To the law and the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. They will pass through it hard pressed and hungry. It shall happen when they are hungry that they shall be enraged and curse their king and their God, and look upward. Then they shall look to the earth and see trouble and darkness, gloom and anguish. They shall be driven into darkness. The day is coming when, because these people have abandoned God, they've not turned to God, day's coming when there will be nowhere to turn. When the Assyrians come upon them, then nowhere to turn. And it will be their fault because they have chosen to reject the light and to live in the darkness. Comments? I'm not real big on wanting to get through Isaiah chapter 9, because that's another important passage. Let's go ahead and start it. Another one of the great messianic passages of the Old Testament. Nevertheless, the gloom will not be upon her who is distressed, as when at first he lightly esteemed the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterwards more heavily oppressed her by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, in Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined. The message is, yes, it's going to be dark. Darkness is coming. And darkness is coming because you have chosen the darkness over the light. But eventually, and this is especially a message for the northern kingdom, the light is coming. And it's coming through the Messiah. And Matthew quotes this passage as Jesus leaves the area of Judea and goes up to Galilee. Matthew says this is as Isaiah had prophesied. And he quotes this passage, by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, in Galilee of the Gentiles. So Galilee sees the great light, and the great light is Jesus Christ. In verses 3 through 5, speaking of the Messiah, you have multiplied the nation and increased its joy. They rejoice before you according to the joy of harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For you have broken the yoke of his burden, the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the days of Midian. For every warrior's sandal, from the noisy battle and garments rolled in blood, will be used for burning and fuel of fire. This time of light, he says, will be a time of joy, and it will be a time of victory. Isaiah compares it to Israel's spiritual victory, or he compares Israel's spiritual victory to the day of Midian, which is the time of Gideon's salvation of Israel in Judges 6 through 8. We understand this language to be symbolic after the order of the apocalyptic style. It describes an overwhelming victory in very colorful language, again similar to other promises of victory, spiritual victory for God's people. The great bloodletting that happens to the enemies of God. It will be a horrible time for them, but a wonderful time for God's people. Verses 6 and 7, one of the most wonderful descriptions of the Messiah that are penned in the Old Testament. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The government will be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. The increase of his government and peace there will be no end. Upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, and to order and establish it with judgment and justice. From that time forward, even forever, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. In the notes, I have several things that are important in this passage. First of all, he'll enter the world as a child. Secondly, he would be given rule over God's kingdom, sitting on the throne of David. Third, he will be a wonderful king and a wise counselor. He would establish his rule not with sword and arrow, but with judgments and justice. His kingdom of peace will be ever increasing, and age everlasting. And the, I think, most significant thing, he will be God. He will be one with Jehovah, one with the Father. What a wonderful description of the Messiah when he came to this world. But verses 8 through 21, for now, God is angry with this northern kingdom, with what would become Galilee, and the darkness is coming upon them, and it is a just darkness from God that is coming. Verses 8 through 12, because they are proud and arrogant. Verses 13 through 17, because they are stubborn. They refuse to turn to God, and so God will strike them. They are wickedness, and he describes wickedness as a fire that burns and destroys, and we know that to be true. We can see it not only in the pages of God's Word, but we can see it in societies even today, how destructive wickedness is. They are committed to wickedness, and so they have committed themselves to eventual destruction. And that's where we are going to end. We'll pick up in chapter 10 in our study next week. I did get 3 chapters done.